The galaxy was full of mercenaries. They were hunters, killers, soldiers of fortune. They fought wars not for honor, not for glory, but for credits. They were hardened, cold, and fearless. Many had fought monsters that crawled from the dark, nebulae or machines that never tired, or tyrants who ruled with iron fists. But even these mercenaries, men and women who laughed in the face of death, spoke with unease when one word was whispered. That word was human. At first, most newcomers to the trade laughed. Humans? A minor species from a backwater world near a yellow star. Their bodies looked weak compared to the towering Kargons or the armored Vexar. Their ships were small compared to the massive cruisers of the core syndicates. Their empire was nothing compared to the great coalitions that stretched across the spiral arms. Why would mercenaries, who faced worse threats every cycle, fear humans? But those who had been in the trade long enough knew better. They didn't laugh. Their eyes hardened. Some even refused to speak. Because the stories, those terrible whispered stories, were always the same. A mercenary crew would accept a contract. The job would be simple: raid a human freighter, capture a human colony, or force a group of humans to retreat from some worthless rock. On the surface, it looked easy. But then the mercenaries would vanish. Entire ships, entire companies, gone. The few who returned came back broken. They wouldn't talk. Some left the trade forever. Others drank themselves into silence. The bravest of them whispered only a single warning: don't fight the humans. The word spread like a shadow in every mercenary den, in every smoky bar hidden in asteroid stations, in every back alley where contracts were exchanged. And soon the galaxy's most ruthless killers, the ones who feared nothing, learned to lower their voices when the word human was spoken. It was late in the HFY cycle when the largest mercenary guild in the Outer Rim announced a new contract. A human ship had been sighted drifting near a ruined station in dead space. The humans inside were stranded, isolated, their distress signals echoing weakly into the void. The contract was simple: capture them, alive if possible, dead if necessary. The reward? The highest payment ever seen in the black market, enough credits to buy fleets, enough to make mercenary captains fight each other just for a chance at the prize. And yet, despite the mountain of wealth, whispers of fear filled the room. The mercenary leaders gathered around the long iron table inside the guild's fortress station. Flames burned in braziers. Hollow maps floated above the surface showing the drifting human vessel. They're just humans, one captain scoffed, pounding a clawed hand against the table. Why do we tremble like children at the name? I've slain Brokar war beast with my bare hands. I've fought void serpents that swallowed frigates whole, and you're telling me a soft-skinned mammal scares you? No one laughed. A scarred veteran leaned forward, his voice low. I fought them once, he said. His eye patch flickered with a dead implant. They don't fight like others. They don't break when you break their lines. They don't panic when the battle turns. They look at you with those eyes, calm, cold, and you know they will never stop. Not until you're dead. Silence filled the chamber. Even the bravest captains shifted uncomfortably, but greed was stronger than fear, and greed whispered that humans were fragile, that humans bled like any other, that humans could be captured, killed, controlled. So the mercenary guild signed the contract. The fleet was assembled within days. Warships with teeth like knives, cruisers bristling with cannons, troop carriers loaded with hardened killers. The largest mercenary fleet the Outer Rim had seen in decades. They sailed into the void, engines burning with hunger. Yet as they drew closer to the ruined station, a strange unease spread among the crews. The human ship floated quietly, its lights dim, its hull scarred. It looked broken, helpless. But still, something was wrong. The scanners showed strange readings, energy patterns that didn't match the size of the vessel. And then, the first voice of warning came from the youngest mercenaries. Captain, one stammered. The humans. They're awake, they're watching us. Across the fleet, tension rose. On every comm channel, mercenaries laughed nervously to hide their fear. They mocked the rumors, saying the humans would fall like leaves in a storm. Yet their hands shook as they loaded weapons. Their eyes darted to the scanners again and again. And then, the humans spoke. A single transmission cut across all frequencies. A calm, steady voice. No anger, no threats. Only a warning. Turn back. The voice was cold, almost gentle. It carried no desperation, no fear, just certainty. The mercenary captains roared with laughter, mocking the message. But their crews didn't laugh. They felt something in those words, something heavy, something final. The voice came again. This is your last chance. Turn back, or face us. And in that moment, every mercenary in the fleet, from the newest recruit to the most hardened veteran, felt the same chill crawl down their spine. They were just humans. Right? Then why were mercenaries, killers who feared nothing, suddenly afraid? The mercenary fleet moved in like a swarm of predators. Engines glowed red against the dark void as their ships surrounded the ruined station. The human vessel drifted, near the wreck, small and battered, its hull marked with scars of old battles. To the mercenary leaders it looked weak. Too weak. Like prey waiting to be devoured. Inside the lead cruiser, Captain Raoul, a towering reptilian with scarred scales, watched the human ship on the holoscreen. He sneered. That's it? That's what the galaxy fears? A broken shell with a few mammals hiding inside? His voice echoed through the command deck, followed by laughter from his officers. But not all laughed. Some shifted uneasily. Their eyes lingered on the human ship's dark windows as if someone inside was watching back. The comms crackled again. The same calm human voice filled every channel. Turn back. This is your final warning. No shouting. No anger. Just words, carried with the weight of certainty. Raoul slammed a clawed fist on the console. Pathetic. They think to frighten us with whispers? Arm the cannons. Prepare boarding teams. I'll skin one of them myself and hang the body on my hull as a warning. His officers roared approval, but deep inside, many felt a growing unease. Still, orders were orders. The fleet moved closer. Cannons powered up. Boarding pods were prepared. Mercenaries sharpened blades, loaded rifles, and painted their armor with blood-red streaks. They wanted to believe this was just another job, another raid, another payday. But then, strange things began to happen. One destroyer reported that its targeting systems went offline. Another claimed its sensors were being jammed. Communications flickered. Engines sputtered for no reason. All across the fleet, systems glitched, alarms screamed, and yet there was no visible attack. The human ship remained silent and still, its lights dim. What's happening? Barked Raoul. His engineers scrambled for answers but found nothing. Shut down their interference, he roared. But the truth became clear. The humans hadn't fired a shot. They hadn't even moved. And still, the fleet was crumbling piece by piece. Then, without warning, the human ship powered up. The hull glowed faintly with energy lines that shouldn't exist. Engines hummed with a sound that made even veteran mercenaries feel their stomachs twist. The ship was small, patched with scrap clearly old, but the power it carried made it look like a predator rising from deep waters. Every mercenary went silent. And then, the human spoke once more. You chose death. The words echoed like cold steel. The first strike came not from cannons, but from silence. A mercenary corvette screamed across the void toward the human ship, weapons hot. And then, gone. No explosion. No fire. Just a flicker. And the corvette vanished from scanners. 1 second it existed, the next, nothing. Panic rippled through the mercenary ranks. Where is it? What happened? Voices shouted across channels. No answer came. The corvette's crew had disappeared without a trace. Raoul's rage boiled. Cowards! It's tricks! Push forward, all ships! Fire everything! The fleet obeyed. Dozens of cannons lit up the darkness, blazing toward the human vessel. Explosions shook the ruined station, fire and light filling the void. When the smoke cleared, the human ship still floated there. Untouched, And then, it moved. Slowly, deliberately, it drifted into the shadows of the station, hiding among wreckage. Mercenary scanners tried to lock on but failed. Their targets flickered, disappeared, reappeared in strange places. One by one, mercenary ships reported malfunctions. Guns froze, engines failed, navigation spun into chaos. It was as if the battlefield itself had turned against them. On the troop carriers, mercenaries tightened their grips on weapons. Many were veterans of hundreds of raids, men and women who feared no enemy. Yet sweat ran down their faces, and whispers filled the halls. "They're just humans," one muttered, trying to convince himself. "Then why do they fight like this?" another answered. For the first time in years, mercenaries felt something they had forgotten. Doubt. And still, the humans had not fired a single visible shot. Inside the lead cruiser, Ral's fury boiled. Into madness, he roared, "Board them! I want boots on their ship. I'll drag them out myself if I must." The order went out. Boarding pods were launched. Black metal cylinders shot across the void, burning trails toward the human vessel hidden among the wrecks. As the pods approached, silence fell. The human ship's lights flared once more, sharp and cold. And then, the mercenaries realized the truth too late. This wasn't prey. This was the hunter. The pods disappeared one by one into darkness. No sound, no return, no survivors. Across the fleet, panic grew. Crews shouted, captains screamed, and veterans who had faced horrors beyond imagination now trembled. Because for the first time, they understood the whispers. Humans didn't just fight. They waited. They watched. They struck where it hurt the most, and the mercenaries, killers of the galaxy, were nothing but prey caught in a trap. The human ship drifted, back into view, silent, steady, and every mercenary knew this was only the beginning. The mercenary fleet was falling apart, not because of firepower, not because of massive battleships or overwhelming armies, but because of something worse: silence. The humans had fired almost nothing, yet mercenary ships vanished one by one, no flames, no wreckage, no bodies drifting in space, just gone. The fleet was supposed to be the strongest in the outer rim. War-tested captains, ruthless killers, veterans of endless raids. But now, whispers and panic filled their comms. "They're ghosts!" someone screamed over the channel. "No, it's tech, advanced cloaking," another argued. But deep inside, every mercenary knew the truth. This wasn't technology alone. This was something else. The humans had turned the battlefield itself into a trap. Inside the ruins of the ancient station, shadows moved. The human vessel darted between broken towers of metal and shattered hulls, using wreckage as cover. It didn't matter that the ship was smaller and weaker. It mattered that the humans knew how to use the battlefield. Every corner became a weapon. Every shadow, a hiding place. A mercenary frigate pushed forward, weapons hot, trying to flush them out. The captain barked orders, desperate to prove humans were just flesh and blood. His sensors showed nothing. His scanners lied. Suddenly, alarms screamed. Something had breached the ship. The crew searched frantically, no sign of damage, no enemy on board. But the power core shut down. Lights flickered. Engines died. Within minutes, the frigate was left adrift, helpless, waiting for death. The human ship never fired. It didn't need to. One by one, mercenary vessels suffered the same fate. Systems collapsing, engines freezing, crews screaming into comms, begging for orders. Some tried to retreat, only to find their navigation scrambled. Others tried to fight, only to fire at empty space. On the lead cruiser, Captain Ral slammed his claws into the console. His rage echoed across the deck. "Find them! Kill them! They're nothing but mammals hiding in shadows." But his crew no longer believed. Fear showed in their eyes. Their hands trembled on the controls. Many had fought monsters before, but monsters could be killed. What do you do when your enemy doesn't even show themselves? Down in the troop carriers, mercenaries prepared to board again. They tightened their armor, loaded their rifles, and checked their blades. But this time there was no boasting, no laughter. The silence among them was heavy. Some muttered prayers. Others refused to meet each other's eyes. The pods launched again, streaking toward the ruins. This time, they hit their mark. Crashing into the shattered halls of the ancient station, mercenaries stormed out, weapons raised, but what they found inside was worse than any battle. The station was a maze of darkness and twisted corridors. Metal groaned as if alive. Every corner echoed with footsteps, but never their own. Shadows moved, but no one was there. Whispers brushed against their ears, voices that came from nowhere. "They're just humans," one mercenary whispered to himself, his voice shaking. Just humans. Then came the first strike. A mercenary scout at the front vanished. No scream, no warning, gone. His weapon clattered to the ground, echoing through the hall. Panic surged. Mercenaries fired wildly into the shadows. Bolts of plasma lit the corridors but hit nothing. The humans were there, watching, waiting, picking them apart. One by one, mercenaries fell. Not in open battle, not in glorious duels, but silently, swiftly, with precision. Blades struck throats from behind. Shots fired only once, never twice. Every human strike was clean, deliberate. To the mercenaries, it felt less like war and more like a hunt. And as fear grew, discipline shattered. Veterans who had once stood firm against armies now fled into the dark. Some dropped weapons and begged to retreat. Others simply ran, their screams echoing down corridors until they too went silent. Inside the control center of the station, a small group of humans stood. Their armor was battered, their weapons old, their ship weak. Yet their eyes burned with calm fire. They didn't speak much. They didn't boast. They moved like shadows, each step in unison, each strike chosen with purpose. For them, survival wasn't luck. It was will. It was patience. It was the knowledge that no matter how strong the enemy looked, humans would not break. Back in orbit, Captain Rawl's fury turned to despair. His fleet was being dismantled without mercy, not by overwhelming force, but by fear itself. His comms filled with screams, begging for orders he no longer had. "Captain," one of his officers whispered, voice trembling. "We should retreat." Rawl turned slowly, eyes burning with denial. Retreat? Against them? They are nothing. They are weak. But even as he shouted, he felt it, the cold weight pressing on his chest, the silence between every attack. The certainty that they were already doomed. Across the galaxy, mercenaries had always asked the same question: why fear humans? Now, Rawl knew, they weren't just fighters. They weren't just survivors. They were predators wearing the skin of prey, and every mercenary caught in their trap realized the same terrifying truth. This was not a battle. This was a hunt, and they were the prey. The mercenaries had entered the station with confidence, but now the halls were filled with silence and blood. Weapons lay scattered. Armor plates were cracked. The fearless killers of the galaxy had become frightened prey. Groups tried to stay together, but the humans knew how to break them apart. A shadow here, a sound there, a trick of footsteps that drew one squad away from the others. And then screams followed. When the survivors regrouped, they found nothing but empty corridors. Every second felt heavier. Every sound made mercenaries spin with weapons raised. Sweat soaked through armor. Eyes darted at every flicker of light. These were soldiers who had faced monsters, machines, and warlords. But nothing had ever shaken them like this. For the first time in their lives, mercenaries began to whisper prayers. Deep in the maze, a squad finally cornered what looked like a lone human. A woman, helmet cracked, clothes torn, holding only a blade. She stood calm, breathing steady, her eyes sharp like steel. The mercenaries laughed nervously, relief flooding them. One human, their leader sneered. All this fear. For this? They moved forward, weapons raised. But the woman did not run. She did not beg. She simply stood, waiting. When the mercenaries attacked, it was over in seconds. Her movements were not wild. They were precise. Each strike landed where it mattered most. A throat cut, a weapon arm disabled, a heart pierced. Before the squad even realized what was happening, half were down. The rest panicked, firing wildly, hitting walls and each other. By the time silence returned, only the human remained standing, calm, unshaken. She picked up a mercenary's rifle, checked the charge, and walked away without a word. The survivors who saw this ran back screaming, and their screams carried through the comms, spreading more fear than the humans ever could. Captain Rawl, still on his cruiser, listened with clenched jaws. His claws dug into the command chair until sparks flew. "They are just humans," he roared again and again, as though saying it could erase the truth. But his crew no longer believed him. Officers whispered behind his back. Soldiers avoided his gaze. Some even disabled their trackers, hoping to flee without being noticed. The iron discipline that once bound them was gone. Fear had poisoned the fleet from within. And then came the moment that broke everything. On the far side of the ruins, an entire mercenary platoon finally captured a group of humans, 5 of them. Tired, scarred, holding simple weapons. They looked so ordinary that for a brief moment the mercenaries laughed. "See?" their captain said, shoving a human forward. "They bleed like anyone else. They are no demons, just fragile flesh." The mercenaries jeered, raising weapons, pressing blades against the humans' throats. Victory cheers spread across the comms. Relief returned, if only for a moment. And then, the humans spoke. They did not beg. They did not plead. One of them, an older man with gray streaks in his hair, simply said, "Look behind you." The mercenaries froze. Slowly, they turned. Every corridor behind them was filled with humans, not soldiers in shining armor, not giants with advanced weapons, just men and women, their eyes steady, their hands firm on blades, rifles, and improvised tools. They had been there the whole time, watching, waiting, letting the mercenaries think they had won. Now they stepped forward in silence. The mercenaries fired in panic, but every shot missed. The humans moved like water, slipping through gunfire, striking only once, never wasting energy. The platoon that thought it had won was shredded in minutes, and across the fleet, the news spread. Mercenaries had captured humans, only to be swallowed by them. That was the breaking point. Fear exploded. Ships broke formation. Some captains gave retreat orders without permission. Others shut down their comms entirely, hoping the humans would not notice them if they played dead. Mercenaries who had fought together for years now turned against each other in desperation, each trying to escape first. On Rawl's cruiser, the bridge dissolved into chaos. Officers shouted, screens flickered, alarms blared. "We must retreat," one cried. "We are losing everything." Rawl slammed him into the floor, snarling, "Cowards, I will not flee from vermin." But even as he shouted, he saw it in their eyes. They were done following him. Fear had already won. And in that moment, Rawl finally understood. It wasn't human weapons that terrified mercenaries. It wasn't human ships or technology. It was their will. Humans did not fight with the strength of bodies. They fought with the strength of survival. They did not break when cornered. They did not beg when outnumbered. They turned fear back on their enemies. And once that fear took hold, nothing could stop it. The mercenaries had always asked, "Why are humans feared?" Now they had their answer. The truth was not in the weapons humans carried. It was in their eyes. The calm certainty that no matter what, they would fight until the end, and that truth shattered the mercenary fleet. The breaking point had been reached. The mercenary fleet was broken, not by firepower, not by overwhelming numbers, but by fear. Once these killers had been proud, fearless, and untouchable. Now they were scattered, their ships drifting in confusion, their voices on the comms trembling like children lost in the dark. Inside the ruined station, silence fell again. The humans moved like shadows, cleaning their weapons, gathering supplies, dragging their injured back into safe rooms. They had won, not because they had more strength, but because they refused to break. On the lead cruiser, Captain Rahl sat, slumped in his command chair. His claws twitched against the armrest, but his eyes were hollow. Around him, officers had abandoned their posts. The bridge smelled of fear. For the first time in his long career, Rahl felt something colder than death helplessness. He had mocked the stories. He had called humans weak. But now he understood. The comms flared one last time. It was the same human voice. Calm, steady, unshaken. This battle is over. Leave this system. Do not return. No threats. No shouting. Just a command given, with certainty. And that certainty crushed whatever pride the mercenaries had left. Ships began to pull away. Engines burned as captains turned their fleets toward the void. No one spoke of victory. No one asked for revenge. They just wanted to escape. But escape did not erase memory. The survivors carried the truth with them. They had faced humans and lived. But they would never forget what they saw. They remembered the silence in the corridors. They remembered the steady eyes that did not blink. They remembered comrades vanishing without a sound. They remembered the way fear had eaten them alive before the first real shot was even fired. Back in the outer rim, the story spread like wildfire. Mercenaries whispered it in bars, in smoke-filled dens, in secret guild halls. Some laughed nervously, pretending they didn't believe. But their eyes betrayed the truth. The words always came the same. Don't fight humans. The highest paying contracts against humanity were ignored. No one wanted them. The bravest captains turned down riches beyond imagination. Whole guilds banned missions involving humans. Not worth the credits, they said. But the truth was simpler. Not worth the risk of never coming back, and so humanity became something more than a species. They became a warning. When mercenaries spoke of them, voices dropped to whispers. When their ships appeared on scanners, fleets pulled away. When their colonies sent distress signals, no one dared to answer with blades. Humans had turned fear into their greatest weapon. For the galaxy's mercenaries who feared nothing, this truth was unbearable. Because now, they feared one thing. They feared the day when the humans would no longer fight only for survival, but for conquest. Captain Rahl lived long enough to see the end of his career. His name was forgotten, his fleet destroyed, his pride shattered. He wandered station bars in silence, a shadow of the warlord he once was. And when younger mercenaries asked him why he never took human contracts again, his answer was always the same. They're not prey, he whispered. They only let you think they are. By the time you realize the truth, it's already too late. The younger mercenaries would laugh, just as he once did. But when they looked into his eyes, the laughter always died. Because those eyes carried the same haunted look every survivor carried. The look of someone who had stood face to face with humanity and barely escaped alive. And so the legend grew. Not of mighty fleets, not of towering armies, but of ordinary men and women standing calm in the face of death, turning fear itself into a weapon sharper than any blade. The mercenaries never forgot. Whenever the word human was spoken, their voices dropped. Their hands shook. Their pride crumbled because they knew humans were not just humans. They were the galaxy's nightmare.